Hello, Seeker. How are you doing today? Let's get straight to it. Let's see what the runes have in store for us. All right. Not too many today. We have one of my favorites starting out, which is Hagal or Hagalas. It's how we get in English the word for hail. And it's exactly what it means. It's a bit of a snowstorm. I equate this rune with the Tower card in the tarot, which is actually really appropriate, especially because a lot of my astrology friends talk about how 2025 is ruled by the planet Mars, which in the tarot, Mars is depicted in the Tower card. But I do love this rune, Hagal, because it's ice, right? It is a snowstorm. And it can mean a destruction of the crops. It can mean a destruction, kind of like a devastation in a way, but it's a leveling out, really, it's what it is. And what happens when ice melts? It turns into water. And what the water does with the crops is that it waters the crops. So really, that's why the Hagal is one of my favorite runes, because it is a bit dramatic, but at the same time, it is really hopeful. It brings in this idea of renewal, of something that needed to go away, needed to be leveled out. And the things, it's almost like survival of the fittest. If your crop kind of gets this ice storm over it, the ones that are going to survive are the strongest ones, or the ones that are going to survive are the ones that need to be there, that have that longevity. So that's what I'm getting with Hagal. Now, I do love this next one too, because it's solo, or sol, or how we get the word for sun. It's sunshine. I think we're past the winter equinox, right? Or the winter solstice, sorry, which is the longest night of the year, which means that we're getting into warmer months. Not quite yet. I believe, at least in the US, we do have some, I think, snowstorms happening, and we still are in the middle of winter. But we are kind of on the second half of winter now, and the sun is coming out. The sun is also just that solar plexus energy, is that bright sunshine within. And that's also why I'm kind of getting now the vision. I know it's past Christmas, but I'm getting that vision of the evergreen trees. One of the reasons why pagans, for example, we still kind of bring in a tree from the outside, or we have that symbol of a tree, is because those trees remained green even in the dead of winter. Even when snowstorms would come through, they kind of always carry that sunshine within them. So I really love that. I think it's a really hopeful message. And that's the question, isn't it? How do we carry that sunshine within us? Now, the final two runes before we get to some cards is Perthro, which is the rune of fate. I equate this rune with the Norns, or in Greek mythology, the Fates. I kind of see this as like the threads of fate, and they're all kind of holding it. It's also a chance. It's the rune of chance, of gambling, of luck. And the next one is Otala, which is ancestral property. And I associate this with the ancestors. I do feel like our ancestors are coming through in this reading. And if you don't work with your ancestors already, you don't have to if you don't feel called. This is just a general reading, but at the same time, this is our spirit guide, or spirit team is the word I wanted to say. It's a spirit team, and they can help us with fate. If there's something here that you perhaps feel like you're doing, but it's not quite elevating, I definitely have some things in mind when it comes to, you've been at it for a while and it doesn't feel like it's really changing or shifting or doing much. Perhaps your ancestors have something to say, or perhaps it can be what I'm getting now, it's ancestor to me gives this idea of multiple generations, right? We're dealing with our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, even centuries ago, right? That lineage that goes way back. But also what I'm getting here is nostalgia and things from our past that perhaps can still be a trauma or a blockage in our energy that is hindering us in Perthrow, in fate. So perhaps that's something for us to look at too with Solo. Grab it right. With Solo bringing illumination to it and bringing change. Hagal is a rune of change. So bringing change to that. All right, so let's see what the tarot has to say. To see if it furthers the reading or if it has a completely new message for us. One more time. I like multiples of 3, so whenever I'm shuffling, I like to shuffle 3 times. Unless there's a client in front of me and I get a kind of a number in my head and I will shuffle, but usually it's like 3, 6. The most is like 9. But usually that's just when I'm doing readings for myself and I can take that time. Final card that we pulled is the Sun. So I love that we have Solo here and then the Sun card in the tarot. So they are definitely in tandem. These readings are definitely in tandem. So first card we have is the Ace of Pentacles or Ace of Discs, depending which deck you use. I'm using the Marseille here. I do love this card. I believe in the... Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting now what the book is called. The Pictorial Key of the Tarot by Arthur Edward Waite, which is the guy that created our beloved RWS Tarot, which is this one. I'm gonna show you real quick, just so if you're not familiar, when you see it, you will know. It's, it has these backs, but it's this deck, right? I think a lot of us are really familiar with this deck, and that's created by Arthur Edward Waite. And he wrote the book called Pictorial Key to the Tarot. And he actually says that this card is one of the luckiest cards in the deck. So I love seeing that. Because to me, discs and pentacles have to do with the earth element. So when I see the Ace of Pentacles, I see a seed. I see a moment. We actually talked about seed in the Hagal rune. So then we are talking about crops. We are talking about seeds, right? And I do feel because of Hagal talks about ice and winter, to me, this talks about spring, and what does the sun do, right? The sun comes out in the spring again. The sun kind of brings its warmth again and melts the ice away, making way for new life. The middle card right now is the 8 of Swords. And I feel like for now, I'm seeing the 8 of Swords here as incubation, is what it feels like. We have this foliage, this small little flower in the center, surrounded by these barriers of swords. There seems to be an overprotective energy here. Too many barriers, too many walls that I think we've put up around ourselves. And I'm definitely guilty of that for sure. But the thing is, I feel like I'm gonna use the word suffocation. The 8 of Swords here, or there's overprotection that we are dealing with. It could be a voice within, like I'm overprotecting myself. Could also be a voice of a parent or a guardian or an authority figure that has been overprotective in your life, overbearing to you, towards you. And then that seed that you are, that light that you are, that wants to grow into a big beautiful flower, for example, it gets hindered. It gets suffocated. So that's what I'm getting with the Eight of Swords, is that there's a sense here of overprotection. And I do love that word protection, because what I'm getting here with this card, it feels like this card feels really nice. It kind of, you know what it is too, and I think it kind of further hinders us, is that it feels really cozy. This feels really cozy. Overprotection, or the word protection, I like because it was never done with malice. It was never done with malintent. It was always done in love and kindness. But let's say the other person, if you're dealing with a parent, overprotective parent, they're doing it with love. They want you to be safe. They want you to be protected. They want you to have just a peaceful life. But life isn't always peaceful, right? And that overprotection comes from a place of fear. They're so afraid for our safety. They're so afraid for our lives that they've overdone it, and they've stifled and suffocated us in some way. So really what we're doing with the sun here is bringing liberation. We're trying to bring a sense of togetherness. I do love how there's two, they look like children here in the center, you know, and look how behind them there is a wall, right? There's a wall here. It's exactly what we're talking about when it comes to this overprotection. There is a wall around us, and perhaps there's a wall around our relationships. What are we afraid of? Are we afraid of getting too close to someone? Having them really see us? Which I think it's one of the biggest reasons why we overprotect ourselves, is that it's more painful, right? I think that's why hookup apps, for example, are really popular, and dating apps are really popular. It's really easy to just kind of not really meet someone, get them to your place, or you go to theirs, you get together, you do your thing, and then you leave, and then it's done. It's recyclable. But it takes a lot more guts and vulnerability and pain to take the time, right? Hagal and Perthro are both runes of time, right? Perthro is the rune of fates, and Hagal is also the rune of time, because it's ice and we have to let the ice melt. We can throw salt on it, or we can try to warm it up as much as we can, but ice will do what ice does. It'll melt on its own. So it takes a lot more pain to take the time to let someone get to know us. And it's much more painful when they get to know us and they leave. So I believe that's why a lot of us hold back. A lot of us protect. And beyond relationships, putting yourself out there on YouTube, on social media, and showing your work, one, it takes a lot of time, I think, to grow a following, to grow a community. But also, what happens if they get to know you and they don't like what they see? I think that's a really painful place to be. But it's also a very liberating place to be. With the sun here, liberation, it's a very, I'm gonna talk about that. I didn't really shuffle, but the bottom card makes a lot of sense, and I'll talk about it in a second. Actually, it makes sense now, because it's the card of finding your flame. Finding your flame is exactly the sun card in this relationship here. It talks about finding your people. One is about finding the flame. So we got solo first. And then we have this Eight of Swords with this flower in the center, a small flower. It wants to expand. I feel like it wants to like stretch out and grow. It wants to shine like the sun. And because we're overprotective of ourselves, we kind of hinder ourselves, or we've been hindered by others. But allowing ourselves to not be liked by everybody, And like I said, allowing someone to get to know us and letting them leave anyway allows us to find our flame. Because the thing is, not everyone is going to leave. There are many who will stay. There are many who will see that authenticity, who will see that light shining from within, and they'll choose to stay. And that's how we find our flame, is how we find our community and our people. So there's a lot there. There's a lot, in this image, I'm looking at it now, and it's a candle. There's flames underneath in the candle here, but it almost looks like the candle has been blown out, and this on top here is just the smoke. Someone went, and then you just see the smoke kind of going away. A big challenge for us here is being disliked, letting people know us and be disliked anyway, but not letting that flame get blown out by comments, by people leaving, by circumstances. Because the more we let this flame shine, burn, the more we get to meet our people, the more we get to see our people, and we get to meet our people because they get to see us. So I hope that made sense to you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.